And up next right here, the Politico briefing breaking down the Ryan budget plan. And still ahead, was Trayvon Martin killed because he is African American? The Justice Department stepped in as protests grow over Florida's failure to act in the case. And new details in the case of the unarmed Florida teen shot and killed by a neighborhood watch captain. Was it racially charged? That's coming up. This is Andrea Mitchell Reports, only on MSNBC. The attorney for Trayvon Martin, the unarmed Florida teen who was shot and killed, is now releasing new audio recordings of the moments before the fatal shooting. Benjamin Crump is also accusing local police in Sanford, Florida, of failing to properly investigate the alleged gunman, George Zimmerman.
Listen to him. Listen how he's talking, how his words slur. And you scratch your head and you ask yourself, why didn't the Sanford Police Department do a drug and alcohol analysis on him? They did one on Trayvon Martin, who was dead on the ground. Why didn't they do it on George Zimmerman? You ask yourself, why didn't they take a background check on the man who had just killed this kid in cold blood?
Daryl Owens is an editorial writer and columnist with the Orlando Sentinel and joins me now. Daryl, you've looked into this, you've been writing about it. It has taken far too long, I think, for outrage. I think social media have contributed to this now, to finally getting people's attention, including our own, as to what happened. What do you think went on in this case?
Well, it's hard to say because the information has been pretty sketchy, but judging from the 911 tapes that have been released, it appears Mr. Zimmerman may have instigated a confrontation on his neighborhood watch patrol duties and that led to this young man's death.
You know, the Justice Department overnight decided to get into this and now is being pressed by members of Congress to pursue it as a hate crime, which is the way the Justice Department for decades and decades, going back to the Civil Rights era, has pursued cases where local jurisdictions do not look into cases that involve, a black victim and white accused perpetrators.
That's true. And that probably bubbled up from the outrage that has been happening in Sanford over the past few days. It's grown from a whisper to a full-throated outrage, largely because a lot of people in the community do believe that had the circumstances involved a black man shooting a young white child, that there would have been a quick arrest here.
There was the audio of Trayvon's friend, a girlfriend, who was speaking to him as he was trying to get away from, he did not know why this man, Zimmerman, was pursuing him. What do we know about that?
You know, I have not heard many details about that, Andrea, so I can't really comment on that point.
And last night, Trayvon's father, Tracy Martin, talked to Reverend Al on Reverend Al Sharpton's show. I wanted to play a little bit of that.
Okay.
To call Mr. Zimmerman the victim is a slap in the face to me and my family. It's a slap in the face to our community. My son was being attacked. He wasn't the aggressor in this instance, and the Sanford Police Department is trying to make George Zimmerman out to be the victim. And the victim is clear, Trayvon Martin, who's dead in the grave.
And you can only imagine what this family is going through. Apparently, this is what the lawyer played. He was trying to preserve the identity of this young woman who was on the phone with Trayvon Martin, but this is the tape that he played. Daryl Owens, are you seeing now that state officials, investigators, law enforcement officials, the governor are now getting into it because of the pressure from Washington and from the local community, principally?
Yeah, I think that certainly has a lot to do with it, but I do think that the state officials do see that there may be some issues with this case involving the stand your ground law that was passed here in 2005, that although I believe the governor this morning stated that he didn't really see any real issues with the law itself, there are some state legislators who are now calling for a review of this particular law, that perhaps it's too broad and that we need to narrow it so that these types of incidents will be avoided in the future.
Darrell Owens from the Orlando Sentinel, thank you so very much, and we will be right back.
Thank you.
Well, Andrea, coming up in 15 minutes on News Nation, we're live in Washington, D.C. The chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus will join me live. Congressman Emanuel Cleaver will be our guest to talk about the breaking news you were just reporting surrounding Trayvon Martin's death and the federal investigation that is now being launched. I'll also talk with one of Florida's most prominent attorneys, the former U.S. Attorney Kendall Coffey. He's going to break down this case step by step. What happens now that it goes to a grand jury? Plus,